This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 9, verse 3 in the Holy Scriptures, and it reads, "Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world." 2nd Ezra 15, verse 16, and it reads, "For there shall be sedition." Salakia. It says, 2nd Ezra 15, verse 16, it reads, "For there shall be sedition among men, invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor their princes. In the course of their actions shall stand in their power." 1 Thessalonians 5 and 3, and it reads, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then shall destruction come upon them, as a travail, a woman with a child, they shall not escape." Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, Wakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, pushing this word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, pushing this word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim that be like unto the speckled bird, pushing the word truthfully and sincerely. I say shalom to your Akim out there. And this is a news article from ArabNews.com. And this is the first article of the two articles that I'm about to do for the sit-down lesson, as the scriptures I bring out in reference to these two news articles that I'm about to bring out for tonight on the sit-down lesson. Through the spirit, power, grace, and mercy of the Yahweh Yahushua on this August the 29th, 2022 at 10:40 p.m. Central Standard Time on this Monday night. And the highlight of this news article read for in the news for today on this August the 29th, 2022. And it says, Iraq is on the verge of civil war. Protesters killed as Sadr, if I pronounce his name right, he quits politics. That means he resigned from it, he resigned his position. It says the Iraqi powerful Shiite cleric Mustafa al-Sadr announced his resignation from politics permanently. And it says, witness said early that Sadr loyalists and supporters of the rival Shiite bloc, the pro-Iranian coalition framework, has exchanged fire. The U.S. urged calm amending the distributing reports of unrest in Baghdad. Iraq was on the verge of civil war on Monday after a powerful Shiite cleric, Muqtada al-Sadr, said he was quitting politics. His supporters stormed the government headquarters in Baghdad, and at least 15 of them were killed in the clashes with Iranian-backed militias. Right, and that goes into the nations rising against nations and sedition among men. That's sedition among men type spirit. And it says the very survival of the state is at stake. The UN mission in Iraq warns of urging all sides to refrain from acts that could lead to an unstoppable chains of events amidst Islam. The U.S. also calls for calm. And it says the U.S. flares of violence. The latest flare of violence began when al-Sadr, who has widespread influence over state institutes and controls in preliminary groups, which thousands of members said he would close the political offices, have decided not to meddle in political affairs. I therefore announce now my definitive retirement, he said. His supporters responded by storming the government complex in Baghdad as a former Saddam Hussein palace in the city of forfeit green zone, ignoring an army curfew. Protesters launched army chairs in a meeting room, and some waving Iraqi flags and took photographs of themselves, and others cooled off in a swimming pool in the garden. It kind of reminds me of similar what happened in Sri Lanka about a couple of months ago when they had that protest of I believe when they was going through an economic crisis over there, and they stormed one of the political leaders' place where he was reside at, even though he escaped from the scene after the civil unrest happened there a few months ago. It's kind of the same similarity of the protesters in the pools, swimming pools and stuff like that, and entering these government official buildings and stuff like that, taking selfie photos, storming the building, messing everything up in it. It's kind of similar to that happened over there in Sri Lanka. But continuing on with the reading, it says members of the rival Shia bloc, the pro-Iranian coalition framework, opened fire on the Sadrists, and the two groups also threw rocks at each other outside on the streets. Protesters later spread to other parts of the country, and Sadrists stormed government buildings and in the southern city of Nashra and Hela, and blocked entries to Port. Sadr later said he would start a hunger strike in protest and the use of violence by all sides. Iraq has been mired in political deadlock since legislative elections in October of last year. A many disagreement between Shiite factions over a coalition. Al-Baq was the main winner of the election, but the defeated Iranian-backed factions have refused to accept the results and block forms of a government. Al-Sadr withdrew all his MPS forms preliminary in June after failing to establish a government. He has insisted on the early elections and the dissolution of preliminary, and says no politician who has been powered since the U.S. invasion in 2003 should hold office. Hazim Hadam of the European Council on Foreign Relations said it was not clear what Hazard's strategy was. Whosoever does men in typically strategic fashion, there is always backtracking of expecting it, he said. The second and more terrifying thought of this is that he is giving his followers the green light to do whatever they like. The Sadr supporters have for weeks been staging a set-in outside Iraqi's preliminary after storming the legislative interior on July the 30th to press their demands. They were angry at the coalition framework nominated a candidate they saw as unacceptable for prime minister. The framework wants a new deal of government to be appointed before new polls are held. Caretaker Prime Minister Mustafa al-Khalimi early this month commenced crisis talks with party leads, but the Sadr's boycott. Many Iraqis said the political infighting has nothing to do with their day-to-day struggles. Iran has been ravaged by decades of conflict and endemic corruption. Same what's going on in Lebanon as well too. They're going through an economic crisis, a food crisis, war-torn country crisis, just like over there in Yemen as well too. It says oil rich by blatting by aligning infrastructure and employment, power cuts, crumbling power services. Iraq now also face water shortages as drought ravaged swaths of the world. Right, you've been seeing of just like over there in Europe, you've been having a record-breaking heating of droughts. Especially over here in the United States, the droughts like Nevada, California, Salt Lake City. And this is Isaiah 29:6. The Lord of hosts is visiting the earth, which He made. That's why you're seeing not trying to get off topic. That's why you've been seeing the increase of droughts, the increase of earthquakes in diverse places. That's why the Heavenly Father is doing these things on the planet Earth when it comes to the weather. But that's I just wanted to add that to that since it mentioned drought. So yeah, hey, that's what you should be uproars in the people in the world, as I brought out 2nd Ezra 9:3. And that's what we're seeing, uproars in the people of the world. You got two different groups, on the political spectrum. They're going at it with each other. Now you got the UN and the US saying for the calm tensions after this guy right here, resigned from politics, and then you got his supporters out there, violently against other groups, as the two groups clash it out against one another, as it's taking different parts of the country. That's why you got uproars of the people in the world, and you're gonna expect to see more uproars in the people in the world as well too. As I mentioned, 2nd Ezra 9:3, 2nd Ezra 15:16, and there should be sedition among men. They should not regard their kings nor their prince in the course of their action. You're gonna have these citizens of these countries and around the world as well too. They're gonna be uproar over their figures that's in the leaders of their respective countries. And they're gonna highly oppose of the thing of their leaders that's doing in office. And they're gonna highly oppose it. They're gonna be up in arms about it, and they're gonna be uproars of the people of the world about it. That's sedition among men type spirit. Going against their leaders as well too. They're gonna rebel against them. You're gonna see more of this increase in the latter days as well too. That's why we've been seeing it at a higher, an extremely higher rate throughout the year of 2020, 2021, now in 2022. As you're seeing these uproars and the people, it's starting to increase now more than ever, and it's starting to turn more deadlier. That is increasing now more than ever, and it's turning violent as the days and the years progresses on. And I'm gonna bring out a new article as well too, and this would be the second one. And it says Houthis rebels, which is an Iranian-backed military group that's allies with Iran. And this news article from ArabNews.com, and this was published August the 30th, 2022, and published on August the 29th, 2022. And the highlight of this news article, it reads, Houthis attack on besieged Yemen city of Taiz kills 10 soldiers. It says government negotiator says military does not believe in trust, stabilities, or loan. Right, and that's what the thing that I brought out that scripture as well too. For when they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction come upon them. And that's in reference to that. As I was reading through this right here, and I'm gonna read it again. And that goes along with the First Thessalonians 5:3 of that scripture that I just brought out of the introduction of this lesson. It says, read it again for edification's sake. It says, government negotiators said military does not believe in trust, stability, or norms. It says right groups call on the Houthis to end their siege by opening roads. And this been going on quite a while now. Because you're going to have different sides clashing with one another. You got the Houthi rebels, and you got the other groups as well too. Over there, especially like the southern deep part of Yemen. You've been having clashes and commotions of wars or proxy wars, endless proxy wars between both sides, of this situation. It says the international recognized government of Yemen accused the Houthis on Monday of attempting to tighten their siege on the southern city of Taiz of Yemen by launching a deadly attack on the one road connecting it other cities. As it reiterated, it calls for the UN Yemen envoy at the international community to exert serious pressure in the military to stop the attacks. The government said that 10 of its soldiers have died and 7 others have been wounded during the 24-hour while pushing back a new ground and artillery attack from the Houthis against army personnel at the western entrance to the city. The attack is a flagrant challenge to the initiatives and the invaders aimed at ending the war and achieving peace, undermine efforts to extend and expand the humanitarian trust, which the other side accusing the other for breaking the trust, It says seeks to impose the siege of the city of Taiz, Taiz, if I pronounce that right, which have already been besieged for 7 years. It says the government said on Sunday that the Houthis shelled troops, mainly the Harbab road, before advancing on the ground to seize control of its ultimate titan. Their siege of Taiz. Heavy fighting broke out between the troops and the Houthis after their attack, but by Monday morning, the troops had successfully repelled the offense. Military officials said they had described the attack as the fiercest and deadliest since the beginning of the UN broker trust on April 2nd. And I believe they had extended that trust agreement to extend it all the way to 2 more months, even though both sides, because I believe one side blamed the Houthi rebels for breaking a huge violation of the trust agreement between both sides, And it says the Houthi attack came as a UN sponsor as de-escalating the military committee from the government and military arrival of Yemen to discuss violations of the trust and open roads in Taiz. It says, with this dangerous escalation, the government calls on the UN envoy to assume his responsibilities in condemning these criminal escalators, the acts of the Houthi groups. And to these, the government says, under the UN trust, which have been renewed twice, the Warren Properties agrees to stop hostilities, allow commercial flights from Houthi-held Senja, allowing more fuel ships to enter the support and engage in discussions in Yemen to open roads in Taiz and other provinces. Open roads in Taiz is one element of the trust that has not been implemented, as the Houthis have refused the proposal on lifting their siege. They suggest opening small and unpaved roads in the city. Abdul Karim Saban, head of the government delegations at the Taiz siege talks in Yemen, told Arab News on Monday that the UN envoy has hence Groundberg had been alerted about the Houthi attack and military deaths. He said the city has been bracing itself for the attacks for a long time, as the Houthis were embarrassing fighting outside the city during the trust. The military neither believes the trust, stability, or international characters, nor what or tribal norms, Said Ben said. It says rights group on Monday called on the Houthis to end their siege, which I highly doubt that's going to be anytime soon, by opening the roads in or around the city and allowing residents to freely leave to enter to help elevate the worsening humanitarian crisis. It says the Houthis' restrictions have forced civilians to use dangerous and poorly maintaining mountain roads that are the only connection between the Taiz city besieged population and the rest of the world, said Michael Taiz, the deputy of Middle East and North Africa, directly at Human Rights Watch. It says opening the main roads will help immensely to evade the suffering of a population that has been near total isolation for 7 years. Right along those 7 years, you've been having that ongoing proxy wars and clashes between the two different nations, the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels and the Saudi Arabia coalition. With Saudi Arabia coalition is allies with the United States as well too. So they've been having on and on conflict, and that's why the humanitarian crisis in war-torn countries was more worse than ever, in that region, So these things are going to increase more and more than ever, So with that, I hope this was edifying through the spirit, power, grace, and mercy of Yahweh Yahushua. And first and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushua Ba'ashem, or Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, preaching this word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim that be like unto the speckled bird, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And until next time, before I close out this lesson on August the 29th, 2022 at 11:01 p.m. Central Standard Time on this Monday. Can you go outside, cutie? You stuck in here, cutie? Man. She like, what the hell?
You going out there, Kiki? You ain't going out there, Kiki. You didn't go back out there, Kiki.
Salakia for that. I was messing with my cat, me and my brother. But yeah, like I mentioned, you're gonna expect to see more of the scriptures, that I brought out for the introduction of the sit-down lesson. That's 2nd Esdras 9-3, 2nd Esdras 15 and verse 16. Start off with that 2nd Esdras 9-3. The Holy Scriptures reference to these two articles. And you're gonna see the uproars of the people in the world. You're going to see that increase now more than ever. You're going to see 2nd Esdras 15 and verse 16 that I mentioned reference to these scriptures. To these news articles. You're going to see that sedition among men type spirit increasing. Nations going against each other increasingly. Different nations and different kingdoms increasingly going against one another. So, hey, these tensions between these nations are definitely going to increase now more than ever, from a verbal standpoint, from a verbal economical standpoint, from a verbal political standpoint. One side going against another side. That's sedition among men type spirit. You're gonna have citizens that's going against their leaders. Their leaders in those respective countries as well too. So these things are definitely going to increase now more than ever. And so with that, I would say shalom and a ball.